Ready? Are we here? Yo. I'm getting weird. I've got a window open of YouTube open, and it doesn't show me over there. Want the stash back. Hey, yo. All right. So today, the chat is jumping already. So let me know that you can see me, because like I said, I'm getting a weird thing over in YouTube. Yes, Phil, this is the Strat that I was hinting at on Instagram. Dave Tuttle, I got the big thumbs up. All right, good. So I want to welcome everybody to it's turning out to be Strattober here. Strattober, whatever you want to say, at 5 Watt World, doing lots of content about Strats lately. It's just this guitar. I'll tell the story about this when we get to it. And then did the John Mayer one. I'm currently working on the Stevie Ray Vaughan one. Let me do my housekeeping. This 5 Watt World live stream is brought to you by the support of Ish Guitars here in Syracuse, New York, and online. More about Ish later in the stream. About half past the hour, I will do a full blurb on Ish, those great guys at Ish. It's a nice surprise when the stream actually works, even though, like I said, I'm getting mixed messages over in YouTube. I am running at 1080 again. So like last time, I hope everybody is getting good audio and video. If you get anything gets glitchy, let me know in the live stream, and we'll let talk your Ish. That's right. I'll work on it. That music at the beginning of the intro, as Phil Jones already reminded us, is Highlands. It's a tune that Jeff McErlain wrote a long time ago. Well, not so long ago, in his 20s. When he was in his 20s, he wrote that. But he said in an interview 12 years ago, he felt like he couldn't play it at the beginning. And his family's from Scotland, and he can talk about that. We're going to bring him in pretty soon here. I need to thank Bebe. Bebe had some internet issues the last time, a few weeks back, and he came in late in the stream, and he missed my intro. So I'm going to use it again. I'd like to thank Bebe for being here to moderate for us. When I see him jumping in and answering questions in the chat, I can always hear that Mike Myers thing from Wayne's World where he goes, "We're not worthy," because Bebe's we just can't stump him, and we just keep trying. So that's where I'm at. So everybody help out and try to stump Bebe with questions. And Bebe's, I understand, working on a project in the Far East. So he had got up really early to do this and be here with us today. So everybody send out a nice thank you to Bebe. In 2 weeks, I'm going to have Justin Jenke on the live stream to talk about John Mayer. This is a guy who has a channel, about 11,000 subscribers, but he only does John Mayer and John Frusciante. And I'm getting a ton of enjoyment out of watching his videos. It's really been very cool. And nobody knows more about Mayer's recording career and his gear than Justin. So we're going to have him on in a couple weeks. Today is a conversation about Stratocasters. I'm going to run through this. And since I am not a Strat guy, despite this, I'm going to wait before I bring Jeff on. I got to fully Jeff up. I bought this shirt to go with this PRS guitar over here a while ago. I thought if I ever have it on the stream. And then I've been writing, so I didn't shave. And so I don't know if I look like a blues guy. Well, here, let's get a blues guy's opinion. We'll bring Jeff in. Add him to the stream here. There.
Blues guy.
A blues
It would
guy.
be awesome if I didn't have a hat on and I had a goatee.
Right, you should have run off camera and
Did I'm saying a little makeup artist, really bad makeup.
Well, like mine was.
What's going on, everyone?
I am not a Strat guy, so I have my Strat friend here. Jeff is decidedly a Stratocaster guy, although, there's lots of times when he doesn't. I was waiting. I could see him in the green room. I thought he was going to switch it out to the Les Paul at the last second. So he wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't dare.
He would, because we are too good of friends.
Yeah.
So what do you think? Do you think this looks bluesy? Or do you think?
Sure, man. Yeah. Blues is a lifestyle that I don't live.
Right. Because that would be a fairly unhealthy lifestyle.
Yeah, exactly.
You have a pretty healthy lifestyle. Mm-hmm. All right. So actually, this always, when I don't bother to shave, it reminds me of something I read in the New York Times in the 1980s when I was first out of school. I saw in the fashion weekend thing, they said, how people used to unbutton their top button of their shirt and leave their tie on. Mm-hmm. They said, if you think that makes it look like you're working really hard, in fact, it makes you look like you're drunk. So so when I do this, it's kind of like I'd like to think I look like a writer, but it could be that I look like an alcoholic writer when I don't bother to shave. So.
It's like the politicians when they roll up their sleeves for a speech.
That's right. You're kind of like, who are you kidding? What are
Yeah.
you gonna? Somebody hand that guy a shovel, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So yes, this is a Stratocaster. This is the American Vintage 2 that came out on Tuesday that they sent me. I changed out the pick guard already just because I've always liked the look of an old Strat with a rosewood board and a tortoise guard.
It's a good look.
Quick. Say again?
It's a good look.
It's a good look. I think it's a good look.
Yeah.
It doesn't go with the shirt, but it's a good look. And God help us, Jeff and I even got it so that I could play a little bit today. So I don't know if everybody can tell me anything. Anyway, so we can demo Strats. So let me tell you what we're gonna try to do here. I'm gonna do a quick history. I mean, a really quick history overview about why people do the year's Strats that they do. Dan Bailey wants my mint guard. It's in the case, Dan. So when I inevitably get rid of this guitar, I will reach out to 5 Watt World first. So quick history of the Stratocaster. Stratocaster came out in 1954, of course. Originally, all the guitars were solid maple necks. Jeff's going to show us his Landau later. That's got a solid neck with a solid, with a maple board, etc. So they were that way until 59. The first rosewood boards at Fender were in 1958 when they came out with the Jazzmaster. In 59, they went to the Stratocasters. By all accounts, Don Randall in the marketing area of Fender was comparing the Fender offerings, and they thought rosewood was a real upscale thing, and it was Don Randall's idea to start putting rosewood on the guitars. The earliest ones are what they call slab boards. You can see a big stripe of rosewood beyond the nut here, and that started at 59. We have Perry on the stream. Perry is my slab board expert friend. This is a slab board. You can see, actually, you're probably not going to be able to see, but if you look at the end here, you can see that it's a flat surface on the maple and then a curved, this is a 7 1/4 inch radius, traditional slab board. Excuse me, the guitars were slab board until late in 62, going into 63. In 62, they started to become more arced and laminate. And then by 63, they were much more laminate. And then you fall on 64. The guitar in Jeff's lap is a 64. He has a laminate board. He has a laminate board Strat. So, and then of course, CBS bought Fender in 1965, and they were using up necks for years. And so actually, from 65, probably, I don't know, into 67, maybe 68, I had a conversation with Jeff's introduced me to his friend Holger Nolzel, who is a co-owner in Scruff's Vintage Guitars, as a sort of a vintage guitar repair and upkeep guy to the stars, does Eric Johnson's vintage work, does work for Robin Ford, and I had a wonderful conversation with him about why 61. And I was born in 1960, and I said, so Holger, what could I get, like a birth year guitar? What would I? He's like, well, like a 60 is late 60s, almost the same as a 61. They really had settled into it, and the reason that the 61 is that one of the years that they copied is there's a sense that by that year, by 57, you see 57 copies, that by 57 they really had settled in and they had it right. But by 61, they had the rosewood and everything sorted out. And he said that most 61s are good. He actually told Jeff, and he told me that he really hasn't played a lot of dog 64s, that by 64, they really had the laminate thing down. So 61 is sort of where they settled into having the slab boards right. And of course, they're all different across time. Every guitar is different. So that's the broadest sketch. Of course, they came back with maple cap boards in the late 60s, the big headstock, CBS, 3-bolt backplates, just awful stuff later. Not awful, but anyway, lots of good guitars built then. I'm sure.
Sure.
It is. Jeff and I were talking earlier today and reminding us that it is an art, not a science. Every guitar is completely different. We could do an hour. I'm not sure everybody want to hang around for it, but we could easily do an hour about why everybody shouldn't be buying guitars sight unseen online. because that's the whole thing, especially when you talk about vintage. Anyway, I was saying to Holger, what could I get? A birth year guitar. And he's like, oh, clean or a player? I'm like, like a player guitar. He's like, $30,000 probably for a 1960, 61 Strat. So yeah, the numbers have gotten crazy in the last couple of years. So this is an American vintage. They did the 61, they did a 57. I think I put in my Instagram post that they were only doing them in white. I got that wrong. They were only doing them in white for me. I said, well, what do you have? We can send you a white one or a white one. I'm like, okay, well, send me a white one. They came right from the factory. This weighs 8 pounds. So it weighs, really what my PRSs weigh. I was talking to Jeff about it, and you were saying that you'd actually heard from someone unnamed offender. Said what about the wood?
Generally speaking, since lighter wood is usually more wanted, they keep those for the custom shop models. And I mean, you will sometimes find a lighter American Standard or something like that, but you got to see a lot of these at about 8 pounds. And then we start looking at the custom shop stuff and the master boat. That's when you're getting into like 7 and 7, or even lighter for the tellies. But yeah, they kind of save it because they sort it out. It's more expensive actually to buy. Like Michael Tuttle tells me when he gets wood, they charge more for the lighter wood because more people want it. Yeah.
Well, I actually jumped on and went to Wildwood to see what the weights of these were, and they're all within a few ounces of 8 pounds.
Yeah.
And they also have a run of custom shop 61s, which interestingly, and this is could be an hour conversation, they called them 61s, but the necks are all different shapes on these 61s with rosewood, but the neck shapes are all different. Like, they would say it's a 63 neck or it's a whatever. But all these are $4,000 to $5,000 guitars, and those are the ones that are 7.25 pounds.
Yeah.
So what is your 64 weigh there?
7 pounds, 8 ounces.
Nice. Perfect. Anyway, so this is the American vintage. They're doing a 61. They did these in white, in sunburst, and in Fiesta red. And they did a 57 that I think is available in the green and the two-tone burst. I also spent about 20 minutes talking to Holger about the different sunburst years, and that was a great conversation. And Jeff is actually holding a 64, which by then they had really gotten the red right. And before that, like the 59s and the 60s, the red faded right away. And it wasn't until 61 that they changed using a red dye. And there's this great story in the Kelly book on Fender talking about how they were literally having, who was it? It was Forrest White was climbing up and putting pieces of wood on the top of the building with the different dye lots that they were trying to use to see which ones would fade out. And he was remembering climbing up and down for that whole summer. So anyway,
and these are dipped yellow underneath. Like that's a stain, like a paint.
Yeah. And then actually,
you can see it right there underneath.
Right. I just started reading it, and then they actually around 64 into 65, when the bean counters at CBS started to do it, they went back to they would dip them and then they'd spray them if the wood didn't have the grain that they wanted. So you'll see these what they call target bursts, where the yellow is much more distinct and then the red is much more distinct. Yours is not. You can see the grain.
No,
right?
it's you can see, but yeah.
Anyway, so like I said, you could spend an hour talking about bursts. So that's the quick overview. So Jeff, we're gonna kind of go through. I don't know what's going on with my lighting here all of a sudden. We're gonna go through.
It's probably auto on your camera.
Yeah, I gotta change that. That's a mistake. Yeah. Anyway, so we're gonna go through the ones that we've had and the ones that kind of are out in the market that we've had our hands on. So I asked Jeff to have his there. I've got all the 4 Strat shaped objects that I've got here. Do you want to get us started, Jeff? Since I've been yammering on here.
Sure. Well. Are we talking about vintage guitars or just
talk about what you've got, and then we'll go back and sort of work our way up from vintage Vibe Squires, etc.
This is a real 64 that I bought, just kind of in the time right before the prices went absolutely insane. Like I couldn't swing it now, And it's all original, and Holger advised me on it via a FaceTime call for the seller who actually lived around the corner, which was crazy.
I know, right? That's a nuts part of the story.
It's a great story, yeah. And then it was original frets, and Holger refretted it without cutting into the maple, which is a really big deal. because this is a very slim laminate. I don't know if you guys can, it's kind of hard with the autofocus, and I don't have that in, but it's
If you cover your face, it'll do.
Yeah, no, it's not. I have it off autofocus, but it's a very thin laminate. Like, it's very, very thin. I would say like 1/8 of an inch, you know?
Right.
So it's very easy to cut through that. The argument that Leo said he thought they sounded better, but it's cheaper to use a thinner piece of rosewood. So that's the other thing. And also, as we discussed, Fender's initial design was when you need new frets, you just put a new neck on it.
Right.
Right. So one of those things, if you are looking at vintage instruments, especially the 63s and 64s or 65s with the laminate board, any laminate board, that the refret didn't cut into the maple, which you see all the time. It doesn't change the tone of the guitar. It's just a thing that for resale, people are like, oh, they cut into the laminate. Like they cut through into the maple. So I've had a few Fenders. I had a number of Fenders throughout my life, actual Strats, and I started with Michael Tuttle that I have over here, which is a Strat style guitar. I had a Cornetto Relic, which was really good. I stupidly sold it, for no offense to John Sir, but I sold it for a Sir, and it was not. I prefer the Strats, like in terms of the construction of the 6-screw bridge, and for me, I just like an old kind of style Strat I've discovered over the years. That kind of those appointments, not knocking John's guitars, which are great.
Right.
It's kind of become the benchmark of guitars for me. And one thing that you and I have discussed many times, that I've had the great pleasure of playing many, 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 many vintage guitars.
Right.
And I think my friend Matt Schofield put it the best when I did a live thing with him. Not all vintage guitars are great, but the best guitars that I have played in my life happen to be vintage. So I've played a bunch of Strats, and people will argue with me like, oh, they were kind of dogs. I mean dogs, like not terrible, but not great guitars, not worth the money. Like you play it and you're like, I don't know, this isn't a great guitar. So that's one kind of cool myth to dispel, that, not every old guitar is good. I tried this one. When I first tried it, the guy was living around the corner, and it had ancient strings on it. The neck needed adjusting, and it had a Vox Pathfinder. Like, not that it's a bad amp, people get defended, but the guitar sounded horrible. I was like, oh my God. I went on tour, came back from the road, and I called him up. I'm like, so that Strat? He's like, yeah, I took it off the market because I had hurt my back. And so he brought it over. He's like, look, I know who you are. Like, do you mind if I could just leave it with you? And then I could open it up with Holger and him here, like Holger on the phone. I showed him. And so it's all original. And I restrung it, and then I heard what the guitar sounded like. And Holger was saying the same thing. He's like, I've yet to encounter a bad 64. Right. There's different levels.
Sure.
And I'm going to do a video coming up on two 64s. I have one of the same year that's not mine, but I'm going to be able to do a video where I compare the two. And they both sound great. They both sound different, though, which is kind of shocking that they do sound different.
And this is where I was going to jump in, and we were talking earlier today about how a guitar is very different in a different player's hands. Yeah. I don't hit the guitar very hard at all, probably from years of, rounded pick, jazz playing kind of stuff. And Jeff, like, despite the shirt and the hat, Jeff is really, has gigging experience so far in excess of mine, that he obviously hits the guitar harder, and the guitars are going to react differently. You're just going to have a different thing happening. That a guitar that kind of caves in on itself in Jeff's hands might be perfect for me, and vice versa. So
but my general overall thought of all the Strats that I've tried, and all the Fenders, and every guitar I've tried, is you need to try the one you're gonna buy, because the one can come off the line and it's serial number 102, and 103 is magic, and 102 is just okay.
Yeah.
And this is what you were saying about an art versus, it's not a science, because you don't know what the guitar is really going to sound like until it comes together. There's guys who can reduce the variations, with neck fit, neck joint, blah, 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 blah. But sometimes you can try one of those rough cut old Telecasters that you look in the neck pocket. It's just terrible, like when they first came out. And the guitar sounds like, the voice of God. Yeah.
It's magical.
So you really want to try the guitar that you're going to play. And that's one of the things you're talking about, buying guitars online. And I've fallen to it too. Like, man, that guitar looks great. You get it and you're like, eh. Like that's, I got to flip this now.
Or that it's there with the case open, right?
Yeah, I got to flip it, yeah.
So walk us through the other Strat-shaped objects that you've got.
Okay, I have this one. I have the Michael Tuttle, who makes great guitars. So it's a custom Strat. You know, it's like a.
Yeah.
I've had this one for about 12 years. This is my main guitar for many, 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 many years. This is like kind of my touring guitar a lot too.
Yeah.
So it's like an 830 neck. 830 kind of gets a little fatter as it goes up. This is a 10-inch radius with 6105s. I like the bigger frets on all my Strats anyway. I love 7 1/4. To me, 12 feels a bit flat for a Fender for me. Like I've just come to the.
Yeah, I agree. Actually, I'm really surprised at how much I am comfortable with this 7 1/4, and I have 9s on this, and it's set up really low. No problem for me.
Yeah, as long as the guitar is set up well and fretted properly. So this one I have the silent backplate. So when I'm on the road,
Right.
it doesn't make any noise. And that was this guitar is what you heard on the intro track of Highlands from that
That
thing.
tour.
So this guitar, I mean, it's it's just a great sounding guitar. Now, what's the difference between this and a custom shop or a master built? If we're talking price points, like this is a master built,
Okay.
right? You know, because it's one guy, Michael, building these guitars.
Yeah.
So a Fender custom shop master built is going to be significantly more expensive because it says Fender on the headstock.
Yeah.
The quality will not necessarily be better. I would argue. I've played some master builds. You know, like I know Michael's guitars very well. Every time we come, like, it's just great. You know, it's perfect. And so I know the master builds are really good too. I'm not knocking the master builds. They're beautiful. They're great.
Well, and again, they're very different. Each one is a different guitar. So.
Yeah. But in terms of like a cost, so this brings us to one of our conversations, like how much money all these things cost and all the levels, you know.
Right.
One guitar I sold stupidly, a Telecaster that I had. You just do that. Like,
Sure.
it was 7 1/4. It was just an American vintage Tele. It was super lightweight. My friend, when Matt Newmanoff was open, my friend Zeke was like, "I'm saving this guitar for a player. You got to check it out." And it was just a really great sounding Tele. And I sold it to a student who he'll never sell it back to me.
Great.
And it was just a great guitar. Just it happened to be super light and sound amazing. Like it just.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So they are out there.
Yep.
But they're.
Well, Grissom owns a Strat and a Tele that are less than 7 pounds each, and he's like, they're the best ones I've ever played.
Yeah.
So
Right.
he's an example of that. He's got that. Yeah.
So, like I said, there's like when people say like, "Oh, that was it. I tried this guitar and it was terrible." A lot of these things are very subjective too, right? If it's got 7 1/4 and it's higher strings and you're used to 12 and lower action, you might play the guitar and go, "This is a nightmare. This is horrible."
Yeah.
So those are things that you want to think about. But the main thing I look at when I pick up the guitar is, how resonant it is, what it feels like acoustically to me. Like, does it, when you pick up a guitar and you're like, yeah, this will do,
Right. Yep.
as opposed to other ones.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. So a company that I've got a guitar here, a Strandberg that I customized with K-line pickups, and K-line, are again one builder, a single guy, and Chris is great. He built a guitar for Perry, and John Cordy, friend of the channel and friend of ours, has I think 6 or 7 of his K-line Springfields, which is a Strat guitar, and those are all about $3,000. And the interesting thing is, and I don't know what Michael's guitar, what he charges for a Strat. Is it more like 4?
4 to 5, depending on what you're.
Yeah, so it's like that pile of custom shop, team built custom shop they call it, that I looked at Wildwood. They were all in that price range. But the interesting thing is that a 61 was $289.50 in 1961. You take that into current dollars, it's about $3,000.
Right. Okay. Makes
So
sense.
this is a $2,100 guitar, but you were going to spend what you would have spent for one of these in 1961. You can get into some single builder guitars. Oh, and you can get a Sir. Here we're kind of talking about this $3,000 price point. You can get into a Sir. You can get into, like I said, the K-lines. You cannot get into a custom shop unless you find a used one.
Danacasters are about 4, right?
Yeah, Danacasters are. I think his prices are scooching up too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And so the interesting thing I've found with Fender style guitars, since they're bolt-on necks, like I find that to be, look, at the end of the day, they're parts guitars.
Right.
Really.
Right. That's what's coming out.
So I think there is more. Oh, you got a little video thing. All right. I find like when you're talking about a Gibson, I think there's more, luthery experience involved with making something with a carved top and making sure you have the neck angle correct. And I'm sure they've got it all machined and everything as well. But I have played some really great Fender guitars. Like somebody just mentioned Haar guitars. I've played one of those when I was in Europe. It's a fantastic guitar.
Somebody mentioned Bosch. They're great. Yep.
Yep, Darash is great. Tuttle's great. The Stratocasters are great. I played a few Nacho Banos guitars, and those are great. Those actually were the most vintage feeling of all of them.
Yeah,
that I've tried. Like the ones that
Nacho Caster last year, I was floored by that guitar.
Yeah,
and it wasn't set up the way I'd have it set up or any of that kind of stuff, and it was just amazing. It was an amazing experience. Right. So yeah.
But in terms of the neck, like I played a lot of old tellies, and I played one of them. Like, oh, this actually feels like an old telly where. Some of the like the Stratocasters, which are great, they feel a bit more modern, which is not necessarily bad, of course. But the Nachos that I have played seemed to feel most like the broadcasters that I've played, a bit more rough around the edges kind of feeling, which is part of the magic.
Right. Somebody mentioned, Jason mentioned McMulls, and I know that they've had those, the guys at TPS have had those through, and Bebe mentioned those in an email when we were corresponding about him doing today's
with that wacky headstock, right?
That weird headstock. Yeah, I can't get my head around the headstock. Of course, I can't. The Strat-shaped object here. So get us through the rest of your Strats, and then I'll mine quickly, and then we'll keep moving on here.
I have my true love at the moment is the Mike Landau Master Belt.
Yeah, I sent Jeff a picture of this with the mint guard and the tortoise guard, and I'm like, "What do you like?" And he sent me back basically a picture like that. Right? He just took a picture of himself. He's like, what do you think I'm going to say?
So this is, I just got lucky with this guitar. I encountered it a few times at a store called Watchtower Guitars, and so went back and played it. And it has a history of being owned by people who are friends of mine prior to it, which is really funny. And all of them were like, yeah, I should have never sold that guitar. But they all sold it to get into vintage instruments and things like that. So it's a 7 1/4 radius. It's got a kind of a bigger neck. They say it's a copy from Mike Landau's 1968 Strat. I'm a huge Mike Landau fan, but that is not why I got this guitar. It's almost kind of slightly annoying at some points to be like, oh, you getting your Landau on? I'm like, no, I just, yes, I'm like Mike Landau, but anybody who likes the music I play likes Mike Landau because he's the best. And you know what I mean? Right. I got it because it's a great guitar. It's 7 pounds, 3 ounces. It has 6105s. It's 7 1/4. Got the 2 humbuckers, and it sounds Stratty, but not super Stratty. And I was kind of looking to get away from traditional Strat sounds.
Yeah.
Just for my music.
You have a guitar that's that form factor. So,
and
obviously the guitar you would take, right?
Well, yeah, if I went out with Robin again, I'd bring this. I'll bring this for everything now.
Oh, no kidding. Right?
Yeah. For my music, because my music is, I do the bar as part of the way I play at this point, I just love that being able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Just a little piece of Highlands so you can hear the difference.
What was that?
Play a little piece of, not to do too much dancing monkey request here, but if you could play a little piece of Highlands, you can hear the... Now, this is a Masterbuilt guitar.
Yeah. Jason Smith.
Yeah. This is a real high-end guitar. Okay.
Now, interestingly enough, like the person who was the pre-owner of this, my friend Tracy Farmer, owned this one, and he owned a different one. And I remember he got this, dude, it's the greatest guitar in the world. He flips. He's good friends with Holger. Those guys are great buddies and great friends of mine. And then he flipped this for like a 57, towards 57 Strat, and it went through some other people. And then he missed it, and he bought a different one, which he felt didn't match this one in terms of the sonic quality. The build quality was the same, but this, he just said, yeah, that one's kind of magical. And we were sure it was the same one because it had the pick guard, like,
where it's worn?
Yeah, no, where it's the lighter here, the pick guard matched exactly.
Tortoise, good Tortoise is unique.
Yeah.
This is a straight Fender guard, and it's not exceptional. Mike Adams from Mike's and Mike's Guitar Bar. I sent him the 2 pictures. He's like, I really like the mint, but that mint's completely wrong. He's a vintage, guy.
Yeah.
He's like, and if I was going to buy a torque guard, I'd buy it from this company, but they're $300. I'm like, yeah.
I know the buddy. That's a company that my friends got the guards from. Yeah.
Fire or something, right? Holger couldn't think of the name the other day. Same thing. So. All right.
So this is great. I just love this one because I'm a Strat guy, but it has some sensibilities. I love Les Pauls and Gibsons a lot, and this just works really well. It kind of rides the line between the two in a way that we talked about this when playing with Robin. When I was playing a Strat, he forbid me to play a Strat on his gig because I would go to the neck pickup. He's like, yeah, you sound like Hendrix, or he was just. For him, I think you sound more like yourself not playing a Strat because it's very easy to fall into that sound. And I do agree with him. And it's not a bad sound, but I do know what he's saying.
Sure.
Like when Jeff Beck plays a Strat, he doesn't sound like he's playing a Strat.
Right.
To me, it's not noticeably like, oh, it's a Stratocaster in terms of traditional Hendrixy, Stevie Ray Vaughan kind of tones.
Yeah. Let's do the next one.
Yep.
What's next? So, and one of the things we're going to talk about as we go here is how many of these guitars have Fender on the headstock.
Okay, well, I have, like Michael Tuttle made me a version of this as well in black prior to this.
That's true, yeah.
I can go get that if you'd like.
Okay. I think we know, some of the folks here know that guitar.
And then there's the fun one, my Charvel, which is made by Fender. And this is the Jakey Lee Charvel, because growing up as a kid, big metal guy.
Yeah.
And... Right, so
this midstream wake up moment. I should do the ad now.
Yeah, and
let me segue right into the ad because I'm going to miss it. It's already 4:35. I wanted to say that 5 Watt World live stream is brought to you with the support of Ish Guitars. Ish stocks carefully curated set of brands: PRS, Dingwall, Martin, Schecter, Strandberg, Music Man, Gretsch, Fedora, not Fedora. This is Fedora bases, Heritage, Ritter, Ibanez, Taylor, Vox, and Victory, to name a few. Since 2014, Ish has grown to be one of the top PRS private stock and wood library dealers in the world. We're going to see one in a minute here. It is also dealing vintage pieces, and they've had a 1960 Les Paul Burst and a 56 Strat come through the shop in the last 6 months. They work with manufacturers to do limited runs of guitars, which is very cool, in unique woods and colors, you name it. They highlight that fact on every instrument is unique, and that unique instruments are worth pursuing. Most importantly, the shop is run by and for musicians. There isn't anyone there that'll answer the phone that doesn't play guitar or bass or both. It isn't an exaggeration to say that I moved to Syracuse in part to be able to work with the guys at Ish. Their phone number and the link to the website are in the description. I'd like to thank Ish for their support in sponsoring the live stream. So thanks, guys at Ish. And that's why their logo is in the top right corner. So now that you woke everybody up with your Jakey Lee, that's a hardtail, yes?
It's a hardtail. And I just loved it because, it's just been a fan. And initially, the original Jakey Lee guitar was not a Charvel. It was a Stratocaster that his friend worked at Charvel, and he took off the Fender logo and put Charvel on it because that's what was hipper in the 80s. And so Jakey Lee's original guitar is a Fender Stratocaster.
Okay.
70s. And this one, I just loved it. There's a custom shop version of this, which is a few $1,000s. This is the made in Mexico one.
Huh? Yeah, it's about, you can see the factory from San Diego, so there you go.
Yeah, it's really good. Okay, what's the problem with the less? Okay, let's just talk about this sometimes. Okay, so I'm assuming some of the Fenders, like the Mexican-made Charvels, when I got this, like the frets, it's got a kind of high fret here. So I do need to get a grind and polish, which I've not invested the money in that yet.
Sure.
And the nut that came on the guitar was they just took the nut, glued it on there, put strings on it. It was...
Yep.
Uncut. It was horrendous. It was one of those things you're like, you gotta be kidding me. So I brought it to my guitar repair guy. He's like, really? They lit, so
right.
There is.
But this is a $900 guitar?
$900. Yeah, like 12 or 13. Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
Right. No case anymore. That's another big thing we're finding, that a lot of these guitars come with no case. This just came in a cardboard box.
This actually came in a very cool hard shell case, as you would expect. That's
the price range, though.
Right, exactly. This is the $2,100 guitar, 2095 to be clear. Yeah. But they ship it in a hard case, and it's a 61 replica. Unlike the 57s, they shipped in tweed cases. We saw those on Cordy's channel. This one came in a very appropriate brown Tolex, because that's what they're putting on the amps in 61. So it's the same and the correct orange inside. So they got all that right. So.
Right.
So So you have more Tuttles in the cupboard, but
I do. I can get the black one. I have to go on camera to do it, but it's.
I'll start doing mine.
All right, do it.
Okay. So if we do this by price point, I have to say I haven't played them, but the guys on TPRI, the Telecaster forum, are just always agog at certain lower price models, and the Vintage Vibe Squire stuff always gets rave reviews from those guys, and those are being built in Indonesia. Strandberg's guitars are built at the Cork factory in Indonesia, or those are probably maybe in China now. I'm going to show the Strandbergs. So this one you guys have seen a bunch. It's a nice guitar, really nice guitar.
This brings me to a point that I want to talk about when you're. I've played. Okay, so famously, it's oh man, his name is Jack Pearson.
Yeah,
plays a Squire, one of his favorite guitars. So here's the thing that's really important, and the deep secret, is it's just the wood. You can get a really inexpensive guitar that sounds and plays great. Also, you can do the upgrades of things. So like that's an important thing when you're looking at the lesser expensive guitars. For me personally, I don't care for American standards. They don't feel right to me. I much prefer the vintage series or the reissues because they feel like, in my mind, what a Stratocaster should feel like. So you can get like those road worn series. I always thought they were really great.
yeah.
And so you find a nice lighter one because sometimes they could be heavy, sometimes they could be light, but I found them pretty good. So you might have to drop some money. You might want to upgrade the pickups, which is usually the electronics that you're going to deal with. And sometimes like a grind and polish or a refret. And I find sometimes things like the Squires that are really good. The failings can sometimes be in the fine details.
Yeah.
Of like the fret job. Something like that.
American Strats were still like $1,200-$1,300.
Yeah.
I had a couple in the early 2000s. Yeah, I was living in Burlington. I guess it was about 2015 because they did a big rework of the model at the time. And I bought the guitars and I brought them in for setups. And the guy's like, yeah, I had to brush up the frets. Like at that price point, you were still doing that. Yeah. This is a Strandberg that was from the batches in 2016, 17. The guitar used to be a $1,500 guitar. Mm-hmm. It did have some things cleaned up, and it was sort of like the evolution of that level of guitar. You're gonna still have to take it to somebody and have maybe go through it and make sure it's got. So this is my project, my John Cordy Strandberg. It's memorial. He's alive. It's not memorial. It's an homage to John Springfield K-line. This has K-Line's pickups in it that Chris did specifically for this guitar. Pickups sound amazing. Obviously, it's a hardtail, but I can grab the neck and wiggle it. That's all I end up doing. This is probably one of my favorite guitars. When my hands hurt, I pick up the Strandbergs. So that's one of them. I've also then got one of the new Bowden NX ones, which is a Strat-shaped object right here. And this is a Humbucker single, one of the classic mods. I think this one had been around the magazines because by the time I got it, the pickups, this is a raw nickel cover on the humbucker, and it was pretty marked up already, so it's good. These are stainless steel frets, and I think you can hear it. Strandberg. And then when I was talking to Holger the other day, I said that I, got this American vintage in, and I had spent some time trying to dial this guitar that I got from Ish last year. Now, I got 2 guitars from Ish as part of my consulting and sponsorship deal with them instead of taking cash. And this is I actually bought this shirt because it goes with this guitar. This is a gorgeous wood library, and it's an amazing sounding guitar, but it ought to be because it's the price of a team built custom shop guitar. But I can tell you that I turned on the EQ, scooped tone. That's good. I got to work on the camera thing. So, you can get a guitar like this with 3 pickups that sort of does those jobs. You probably could hide it on a record, Strat-like-ish. Right?
Yeah.
It's a set neck guitar. It's a all ash body with a maple neck, set neck. It's a 25-inch scale. Like I said, you can spend a lot of time tweaking it. I said this to Holger the other day, and there was a big pause, and then he said, you understand how much that's blasphemy to a guy that, deals and works on it, the absolute thing. He's talking about why they shouldn't make 57 copies. They should make 56s because that was a better year. So anyway, so that's the Strats that live here at 5 Watt World, the Strat shaped objects. And only one of those, and the most recent arrival is a Fender. So,
in terms of some people are talking about 7 1/4, I absolutely love 7 1/4 radius.
Huh.
And I think it brings out some stuff in some people's playing. And a poorly set up guitar is going to be a poorly set up guitar. Something about 7 1/4 radius when you're vibratoing or certainly when you play chords, it works really great. The vibrato, at first, it took a little while to get used to. And so people are asking, is it possible to get low action? Well, low action is relative.
Right.
You can get used to anything. Okay, let's talk about that, because this is really important, I think, especially when you're dealing with the different models of Stratocasters, since we're talking about Strats. Like the modern ones, a flatter fingerboard, if you're going to be playing stuff like Steve Vai, right, a lot of legato, then I would not recommend 7 1/4. Like if you're very technique-based, where a lot of things are big, kind of fast legato lines, 7 1/4 is a bit more difficult to manage that way. Some people will say, well, then why bother playing it? Because I just like the way it feels. I like the way it makes me play. When I play a flatter fingerboard on a Fender, it doesn't bother me on a Les Paul, which is kind of interesting. It's just a different guitar. The scales are different, everything like that. There's just something about the way the notes feel when I'm playing 7 1/4. And I heard Landau talk about it on that same model. He's like, yeah, I just always come back to 7 1/4. Yeah. And, we talked about this. Certain guys like, Eric Johnson's are about 12 on his guitar. And a lot of these guys, they talk about that when they started playing vintage guitars, they'd been refretted so many times that they actually flattened out the fingerboard over time.
Right.
That was supposed to be the case in Stevie Ray Vaughan's guitar. And you can play through Fender necks. There's only so many refrets you got on the guitar, really. Yeah. And it depends. I'm not brutal on frets. And some people are talking about stainless frets. I have them on some of the Tuttles, and they're great. They do sound different to me.
They do.
So I'm never going to put stainless in this. I'll keep a stainless in the Tuttle because it sounds a little more modern. It's cool. But my thing about, since we're talking about all these Fender price points, is there's going to be, there's diamonds in all of those models.
Right.
And you just have to play the one you want to get. So buying it through... Or someone like Ish, you can call up the guy and say, what is your best Stratocaster? And they'll say, okay, this is the one we like the most. As opposed to, musicians' friends does the best they can. They have the weights on there, which I think is really important and it's really cool. And then, then you can return the guitar. But there's nothing like going in there and trying it. And I was just talking to you earlier as a friend of mine, ended up getting a 64 reissue custom shop. He said, it's just the best guitar in the store, but I don't really love the color. I'm like, yeah, just buy it. Because it was, I love the color, but my point is, if the color is not exactly what you want, but it's a great guitar, you'll just get used to that color, unless it's like a, fluorescent pink or something like that. Which might be your thing.
That's all right.
What I'm saying?
There's anything wrong with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody was asking, you're answering that question. Maybe you saw that go by. Somebody was asking about 7 1/4s. Shad DeGlorious was asking about that, and I think that's great. That is a really good answer. BB's reminding us of Jeff Sen's guitars. A lot of guys in Nashville play Jeff's guitars, so it's very cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guys making really great ones, and I would definitely look into this. First of all, if you want to get a master built, there could be like a 4 or 5 year wait depending on the builder.
Right.
I mean, it's crazy how long the wait is for those. And your guitar that you might want, even if it's a master built, might be floating around as a used guitar anyway.
Right.
Here's the thing: when you get a custom built guitar, you get it, and you might be like, "This isn't really what I wanted. It didn't turn out to be." So I'm a big try to play the guitar you can, or if you're going to purchase it from a store, that you have a return window.
Yeah.
Because you might get it, and you'll know pretty quickly if you feel like I can get used to it if I change the pickup. Don't know. Like, you might change pickups at some point, but if you don't feel like the guitar is for you right off the bat, don't try chasing your tail, because then I've done it so many times, and you just never come out. You're never happy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, and I think that those first impressions really hold true. That's been my experience. Ben Agata was saying that he gives a shout out to Amar Anthony at Ish Guitars, the tech there, and Amar's amazing. I've been doing all my work, and actually I've been recommending the Ish guys for tech work and setups for anybody who's within a couple hours. It's the guy that I used to use in Ithaca is also a builder, and he really doesn't do setups anymore. I don't know Rochester. Well, actually, I had a guitar set up in Rochester, and I wasn't thrilled. It's just not that far away, and a good setup guy is gold. I mean, you're in New York, you're really spoiled. So yeah. Ben Fletcher was here. Where is he? There he is. He says, it's not guitar related. He says that I'm looking very young. Must be a new old stock guitarist. That's what I am. I'm new old. That's very funny, Ben. Ben is an amazing slide player and great guitar player. You should check out his has a YouTube channel, and Ben is great stuff.
Can I promote my workshop for this weekend?
I do, actually, because we're at 450 already, and we want to definitely make sure we talk about Jeff playing the workshop. One of the reasons I chose Highland is your workshop this weekend is what?
Minor blues, mastering the minor blues.
And that's in C. That's in E, but C sharp minor, right?
C sharp. It's an E major, so it's not quite a blues.
That's
but
really right.
I'm gonna put my little link here. Oh, there we go. BB's on top of it. Yeah.
He's all over.
And if you use that link, it's 25% off. Go over and check it out, or just sign up for YouTube freebies over at my jmguitarlessons.com.
Yeah, I put Highlands at the beginning of the stream because I was listening to it again at lunchtime. I actually listened to the version that you did at True Fire 12 years ago, which is just with no band.
Yeah.
And you say then, so that would have been 12 years ago. You said that you felt like you were now old enough to play that tune, that your playing had gotten to the point where you're expressive. And then I watched this one from 3 years ago, and I was like, wow, and I'll put the link in the description because I haven't done that yet. For that performance at Umbria, that's like a use of the bar pickup selection. It's a workshop in itself. It's fantastic.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I mean that's what I learned from Jeff Beck. You know, all the sounds come from the guitar. Really, you know, it really makes a huge difference. Just spending time, and this is single coils versus humbuckers, right? One thing is what I love about Strats, even though I've been using humbuckers a bit more lately. I try to get humbuckers that get close to a single coil sort of feel, if that makes sense. So a lower output humbucker. And there's just something about the single coils that really get that cool, you know, can really super dynamic. You know, you can do it with humbuckers for sure, but there's something about a single coil. And somebody asked real fast, like about the bridge. I love the bridge in a Strat. Like mostly guys who play tellies don't like bridges in Strats. I like them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just so used to grow up playing it. Also, I have my tone knob is on my bridge.
Right. But you have a 5-way switch.
I just had that was the only thing that was different about the guitar was the 5-way. Yeah.
There was a question here. Somebody was asking what I was playing through. If you're asking because it's muddy, I will say what I'm playing through. But Jeff and I got on about half an hour early. I've had a problem getting a decent sound live. Jeff always says I sounded like I'm a little bit underwater, so it's not fair. But I will say that the rig that I'm running is slightly less expensive than the rig that Jeffy's running there today.
Yeah.
I'm running a new Stomp XL that I just got, and I'm going to replace my HX effects with a Stomp XL because then I have one fewer operating systems to learn, because I use a stomp every day for practicing and playing out in the living room, going into the front of an amp. I use it for delays, etc., and even for the drive pedals a lot of times. So that's what's going, and then it's going directly into my interface. Where Jeff's signal path is.
Oh, I am playing. Sorry, I got distracted by the chat for 1 second. I am playing a 2-rock Bloomfield drive, just the power section. I am using the Kingsley Juggler, which is a friend end of a Dumble, into an aux.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's asking a question about rosewood slab boards. And I'd actually be interested in seeing Perry and BB weigh in on this. I had this conversation with Zach Childs the other day, and Zach is my Fender guy. And Jeff and I can talk about this too, because what I'm going to say is a generalization, because what I'm going to say, I don't think applies to the guitar in Jeff's lab. So slab boards are thought of as having more fundamental. And there's this, I think it's kind of an urban myth that maple boards are snappier. In fact, rosewood is a harder, more dense wood. And I would say that I think rosewood board Fenders are snappier, and they push through in a very different way than I think maple sound. And when Zach Childs summed that up by saying he thinks that a rosewood board gives you a stronger fundamental. And he says that, and he doesn't play rosewood, Fenders. He loves the traditional sound, and he actually has a maple cap with the steel saddles. He might even have steel saddles on his 57 Esquire, because he really likes the sound of those. They're really snappy. I think it kind of balances that. So the idea of a slab board, and like I said, Perry and BB probably have a lot to say about this, and I'll scroll ahead. I apologize if I'm missing any questions here. Sure I am. That's the generalization I would have. I find that it's probably as much to do with the way Jeff plays that particular, laminate neck guitar to me, that guitar has a very strong fundamental tone.
I found it's just the guitar to guitar. That the Landau is ash with maple, and
right.
Super warm sounded guitar. Like it doesn't, and this is a laminate board, and it's, I don't know, it doesn't sound snappy. I think it's just guitar to guitar. I mean, I feel like that. I don't say it's a myth, because there obviously is a difference. Sure. I just go for really what it comes down to is if the guitar just gets my ear going, then I just go with it. Yeah. Yep. And if it just sounds right. I know there's probably a difference, but you are totally correct that rosewood is a tighter grain. It's a harder wood.
Yeah. So BB jumped in with the answer. He says slab rosewood boards are snappy, tight, fundamental of the note. Slab fixed first, then the radius is formed. Yeah, so that's there. And then somebody was reminding us that Chris Buck recently did a rosewood versus maple episode, and with all the things that are involved in doing a YouTube video, they couldn't hear the differences at all. Like blind taste test there. And then Perry says he thinks that the pickups actually probably make a bigger difference than the rosewood versus maple. And he said you put gray bobbins, which he means. So gray bobbins, if I'm right, are mid 60s. Is that right? 64. Are you gray bobbin pickups?
There's a gray bottom, yeah, and and I've got the purple wire.
Right, and so if people just real quickly here, gray bobbin pickups, as the guitars went on in the 60s, the pickups got a little hotter, and they were warmer, fuller, not as snappy. But again, we're just generalizing in a massive way. I'm working on the Stevie Ray Vaughan video. Stevie Ray's guitar was a parts caster of sorts, probably a 63 body, a 62/63 neck, but 59 pickups. And I wouldn't say that his tone is thought of as late 50s. And he sounds like a 60s kind of with all the things that he had going on. As Perry was reminding us, there's a lot of variables.
A lot of variables
there.
So for me, it comes down to the guitar. Does the guitar sound good? Whatever that means. Does it sound warm, or one thing I do look for in any Strat, or anything I look for any Strat Fender style guitar, is how it sounds across all the pickups. That's an important thing that I look for, because sometimes, especially with vintage guitars, you'll find like they were all hand wound as they are now, but lots of variation in the pickups. So sometimes the neck pick will be amazing and the bridge will be a little anemic or something like that. So one of the things when I go through is just kind of, see what sounds like in the bridge. Neck. So this guitar has got a really across the board. That was one of the things I was really, and that's one of the things Holger was saying, that's a 64 trait as well, that they're all really even. I have tried some earlier Strats and been like, man, the neck on that guitar is killer, but the bridge is not, or vice versa. Like the bridge is amazing on that guitar,
Yeah, cool.
Like Robin's Telecaster, he's like, man, the bridge on that guitar, that bridge pickup on that guitar is just magic, and he didn't feel that way as much about the neck pickup. So.
Yeah. Simon Jarrett is here from.
What's up, Simon?
And Simon, it's good to see you here. He's asking which cab you're using, cab mic combination uses in your aux. Jeff has said, I'll let you do the speech because it's like you kind of ignore the labels, right?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, this one in the aux, I'm using the Greenback 412 cabinet with a 421 and the ribbon mic, whatever the Royer. So it's the ribbon and the 421, and the Greenback Punchy cabinet, I believe.
Greenback Punchy?
Yeah, there's a few different ones, I think it's called. So the funny thing about just to answer this, people ask me, what are they talking about? The aux that I'm playing through, it's off. Oh, where is it? Backwards. It's right there. That is a fake. The amp is super loud. It takes everything down to no volume, puts it to the aux, and there's a fake cabinet that emulates, IRs like we talk about a lot with the patches we did. And so everything's going through that. So I always try to find the cabinet that just sounds right, because sometimes they'll have like a Dumble cabinet or a two-rock cabinet, and I'm like, that sounds nothing like my two-rock cabinet. So I just go with my ears, and the 412 Marshall cabinet sounded the most like I make my two-rock cabinet sound,
Yeah.
So I just kind of go with the ears on that, and I find like, the two or three cabinets or even one cabinet that I like, and I kind of tile everything in around those cabinets.
Yeah.
If that makes sense,
Yeah. Well, you're minimizing the variables. So.
Yeah. And like I said, this is one of Simon Jarrett's pedals. It's called the Juggler. It's the front end of a Dumble ODS kind of style. There's a great video on that pedal show that Bevy can put up the link to, explaining the pedal in detail. But the amps make a big difference as well. But if we're just keeping on Stratocasters, so I was back to the pickup thing. I look to make sure that everything feels pretty even. I think it's much more consistent now than it probably was back in the day. But those are things I look for. And one other thing while we're talking about looking at guitars is acoustically, I just do the guitar test. If I pick it up off the shelf and I pluck my high E string and I don't feel anything, I always move on. Right? Because for me, you want to feel the guitar vibrating. So like the B string should vibrate pretty well. But that E string, if there's nothing going on, and I've tried some vintage guitars where you pluck the B string, which has more mass, and you're feeling the guitar and you barely feel it. Huh. And I've often found those guitars to not be very worn in either.
Interesting. What's interesting? Yeah. I was just reading the other day the story of Stevie buying his number one guitar. And I guess the guitar was really trashed. And just remind everybody that guitar was owned before it was traded in by Christopher Cross. Oh. That was owned before. And was it Hennig? Is it Doug Hennig? The guy who owned the store. And supposedly...
Magician?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm getting the name wrong, I'm sure. I apologize. It'll be right in the video, hopefully. Anyway, he said that Stevie would never take the guitars down off the wall. He would do just what you just said. He would walk along and he'd pluck the E string, and then move to the next guitar and he'd pluck the E string. And he would do this like all the time. He'd come in the store all the time. And then he kind of stopped, and the guy's like, that's the worst Strat in the house. And he's like, I don't know. There's something about it, And then here, that was the thing. So that we had a question back a ways. Somebody asking about 3-bolt necks. I think it's the classic thing, especially the early 3 bolts. there's so many variables, and the woods, that was something that that Leo wanted to do. Leo was still owned the company was still consulting with the company when they went to 3-bolt. He was really into the tilt that they had that from the 3-bolt. That's why he wanted to go that way. I owned an actual 72 Tele thin line. That was my guitar right out of college, and I bought that because it just sounded amazing. And it was an actual 72, and it's a 3-bolt neck, like the one they just came out in this series. They did a 72 reissue thin line, which is pretty funny because those guitars were very. There we go, Ray Henning. There we go. Thank you. Thanks, Chad. Anyway, so it's the classic thing. They're all different. So we're kind of winding up here. People are jumping off, and so we're done. This is where I thank Jeff for
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for setting in and giving me some Strat cred by your presence, and I appreciate having you here.
Thanks. Yeah. Looking good.
Except I completely disappear in this dark room with this dark shirt. So this would probably be the first and last time everybody sees this shirt.
Or you, because you'll suddenly disappear into the room, right?
Jeff will be running the stream from now on because I'll be gone. I'll just melt into the world. So
can I say one thing?
Yes, of course.
None of it matters. Just practice.
Play your guitar.
Play your guitar.
Take a course on Sunday.
You know what I mean? Oh yeah, yes. But seriously, just that's it. Like there's an old expression, like there ain't nothing wrong with you 100 gigs won't fix.
Right.
And David Grissom's a good friend of mine. We text all the time, and he's like, "I'm looking at this guitar." I'm like, or should I just go practice? Like that's the thing. Like, what do you think of this guitar? Or should I just go practice? Like, so yeah, it's always practicing is going to be the big difference. So, guitars are cool. They can be enlightening, or like they can be really inspiring is what I'm getting at. But, if you got a decent guitar, that's my point. I'm sorry. If you find a $2,000, that's a lot of money. I know.
Yeah.
And you really like the guitar and it plays great, then great. Just play that guitar and be happy playing that guitar, because you'll be looking at these more expensive ones and you could get it and it could just not do anything for you.
Yeah, and I like I said, I was talking to Jeff before we went live, and I've got that's a Wood Library. That's a $6,000 PRS, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a Wood Library guitar.
Yeah.
It's the equivalent of a custom shop guitar. And I was going through and we were doing the testing, and then I pulled this out and I was like, you know what? This one amazingly sounds the most like a Stratocaster. we were laughing like, go figure.
What do you know? The Strat sounds more like a Strat.
The 2100 guitar. So I don't know. This might stick around. We'll see. I am surprised at how much I've enjoyed playing it. So it's.
It's a friend of mine said, I forget who it was. The best Strat is made by Fender. Because a lot of times when you have builders, they kind of have their take on it or something like that. Right. And there's so many variables. Like you play all these necks, especially the old ones, they all feel kind of different. One guy, was it Friday night? Did he hit it 2 or 3 times more? Who knows?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody. I'm going to play the intro again so you can Highland your way out. And I appreciate everybody helping out.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks again to Bebe. I want to remind everybody to go ahead and look at Ish Guitars. It seems a little antithetic that a guy would promote a channel, a store that has the tagline of the most music from the least gear. But the fact is, you need one good guitar, really good guitar. And I've always been about really good as opposed to lots of. So I'm all about that. So it's great to see everybody that I recognize here, Bill Sanderson and Eric Warrington, all these guys, all you guys, Richard and Sarah, everybody. So it's great to see you. And I will see you again in a couple of weeks. I'm going to have Justin Jenke on the show in a couple weeks, and I'm working on the Stevie Ray Vaughan. That should be coming next week. Thanks everybody that watched the John Mayer one, and thanks again. I'll see everybody soon. Thanks, Jeff.
Guys. Thank you, Keith.